I'm sure, please, people who watch this later, don't beat Jay up too much for lecturing me about skepticism while arguing on behalf for a God. Skepticism is about wanting your internal model from an idealistic standpoint. Modern scientific to match reality. Modern scientific skepticism is about testing as best we can. But that's within the context of testing fact claims about reality. So that modern scientific skepticism isn't going to address whether or not logic has a foundation. You're talking about almost an ancient Greek knowledge of skepticism that has been discarded because it leads to...
Okay.
They're the very questions that Hume and Quine asked.
Yeah.
That's not ancient Greece.
They asked questions. They did not assert answers. That's the difference. You're asserting an answer.
Read William Van Orman Quine's essay, Two Dogmas of Empiricism, he says that they cannot be logically justified on empiricist grounds. That's why they're called two dogmas of empiricism, according to Quine's famous essay.
Sure.
Hesher?
As opposed to moral relativism as I am, and I don't think I'm out of line for speaking for him because it's clear in the book. But let me just hit this one point real quick, and that is this constant raising of the is-ought problem. I'll concede that it may be the case that you can't get from an is to an ought, but you can certainly get from two ises to an ought, and that's the situation that I think we have when we're talking about morality. This is the situation I'm in. This is the beneficial goal. This is what I ought to do.
Yeah, the problem with that is that you've switched from means-in reasoning to moral, or you've conflated means-in reasoning with moral reasoning. And following Kant's terminology on this, that there's a real difference between the conditional imperative versus the categorical imperative. And if we're going to try to reduce categorical imperatives or moral imperatives to conditional imperatives about means-ends reasoning, then perhaps if the morality is, some would say that the purpose of morality is to produce happiness, well, then this would suggest that the answer to the question or to the claim, one ought to be moral, then a Richard Carrier would want to say, well, this should be expressed as an if-then clause. Well, then, if one wants to be happy, then one ought to do things that are considered moral. But then, whether one wants to be happy or not is irrelevant to whether one ought to be moral or not. One has a categorical imperative to be moral, not just a conditional imperative to be moral. And that's my complaint about Sam Harris and Richard Carrier as well, is they just have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of morality.
And I would point out, you're right, Harris denies consequentialism and then proceeds to explain and defend consequentialism, just showing that I don't think he understands.
Actually, what I said was that
relativism.
Sam Harris opposes moral relativism. I didn't talk about his position on consequentialism.
Okay, he opposes relativism and then proceeds to deny any objective grounding for that to get from any combination of ises to an ought, because those reduce to description, whereas prescription is a different category. It's a category mistake. It's an oversimplification. And then, as Sloan pointed out, if you try to go from a hypothetical imperative, from a if you want this, if you want to be happy, then do this, that's consequentialism.
Okay, Sam's not here to defend himself.
Well, you're affirming his position, so
I don't think I'm out of line for speaking for him because it's... Okay, Sam's not here to defend himself.
You're taking not just an epistemology, but a historiographical approach, like how we do history, that is just totally different from every other historian in the world.
I'm not a historian. I'm not a historian, and I don't care what methods historians use.
Bruh. Okay, so then you're not. Would you say then you're not qualified to tell us what's reasonable to believe in historical matters?
I can explain to you what I do and don't find reasonable and why. I'm not a historian.
Okay, what I'm saying is, though, what is reasonable for people to believe about the past, whether you're convinced of it or not, doesn't matter. You could say, well, I'm not sure this or that, but there seems to be evidence and historical scholars in agreement on this. And I'm trying just to go with the bedrock here, that Jesus was, just starting with Jesus, was crucified. He died by crucifixion. That's it's not just they believe it. Every historian in the world who teaches at a major university affirms
what a strange clarification. But that's an argumentum ad populum, because the fact that people are convinced of something is not a measure of whether or not it's reasonable.
If you knew someone who is skeptical of getting a vaccine, would you think it'd be good evidence to them to say that, like, all the major medical associations in the world say it's safe and effective?
I'm sorry, one more time?
If a family member was hesitant to get the COVID-19 vaccine, would it be legitimate evidence to tell them every major medical association on earth says this is safe and effective? Would that be good evidence to share with them?
Yes, because medicine isn't history. Medicine is science.
Is history a kind of science?
It's good evidence because it's science, not history. It's a different category.
Okay, so you don't think we can have, what about historical sciences like geology?
That's not history, that's science.
Well,
just because it covers a period of time. I mean, everything covers a period of time. Evolution covers a period of time. That doesn't make it historical science. It's science. You're putting that on there because you want to smuggle history in. Well, history isn't a science. And for me, when it comes to claims about the supernatural, not once has anybody demonstrated the truth that there is something supernatural or that it can interact with reality in any way. It's all just claims something. Where is the testable? Where is the testable supernatural claim?
I guess so. That's a claim you made. No one has demonstrated the supernatural. Where is your evidence for that claim?
If someone had demonstrated the truth of the supernatural, it would be a function of science and scientific knowledge.
What is science?
Science is knowledge. It's literally what the word means.
They're the same thing?
Well, that's where the origin of the word science is. But the method,
science
is about trying.
If I go downstairs and look in the fridge and I see that my wife put Coke in there and I have new knowledge, did I just do science?
Yes, you did. Science is not a beaker. Science is the process of investigating the world to come up with the best explanation possible. Science does not make proclamations about truth. It just says, based on the information, here's the best explanation we have. That's exactly what science is.
If I demonstrate to you a logical fallacy in an argument, and you're in agreement that there's a fallacy there, have we gotten to the truth?
Well, the only truth we would have agreed on is that there was a logical fallacy.
But, okay, so we've agreed that there's a logical fallacy, right?
Yeah.
And we don't also agree that the foundations of reason, identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, are what dictate that particular fallacy?
No problem. No problem. Agree.
Sure. So you and I are in agreement that there's a logical fallacy. And you're saying that we can't that we can't say that under my worldview.
Yes.
Okay?
No, you can, no, correct. You can say it.
I'm not going to play that little game.
Yeah. Okay. Good. You can say it, but that's not the issue. I know what you're getting at. The justification from that worldview, that's the issue. My worldview, I can justify it. Your worldview, you can't. Let's go over it again. A chemical state that leads to another chemical state doesn't produce proper logical inference.
We'll get to whether or not you can justify it, but here's the thing. We have two different worldviews.
Yes.
Okay? And yet you just agreed that we can agree about a logical fallacy.
Of course we can.
Which demonstrates that I can, in fact, be correct about a logical fallacy.
Of course you can.
Okay?
That's not the issue.
Okay.
The issue isn't that. Let me try it again. You have one chemical state that leads to another chemical state in the brain. This is your worldview. And yet you're going to say this interaction and this change, I'm going to oversimplify, baking soda and vinegar. That's not, it's an oversimplification, but something we can relate to. There it is, fuzz. Does that produce proper logical inference? Of course not. But if your worldview is comprised of a world of physics and chemistry and motion and matter, then that's what it reduces to.
The topic is Christian ethics versus secular humanism, which has a better foundation. The funny thing is, I already won that topic because, as Matt explained to Jay Dyer, he has no justification under the skeptical belief structure to give an accounting for any meta-ethical presupposition he may have. He just kind of grants himself stuff. He grants himself logic, he grants himself reason, he grants himself an entire worldview, even though he's using an unjustified starting position for it. So, I'm not honestly all that interested in doing the God not real dough debate because, one, it's boring, and two, it's also really boring. It goes like this. I don't see enough evidence and remain unconvinced there's a God. Then I say, but you use a theistic worldview of justification like there is a God to grant yourself logic and everything else. So instead of that, I'm just going to grant Matt's entire worldview. 2/3 or more of the planet of this entire planet are all operating inside of a shared delusion that they were created by a sky daddy who loves him some slavery and murderousness. He thinks it's funny to kind of cosmically with people. That's his deal, kind of his whole thing. That's Matt's worldview. So now Matt's right, and the question becomes, should we let them to continue to believe in this nonsensical Stone Age madness, or do we stop them from engaging in it? My contention is, even if God isn't real at all, that people acting as though he is still superior to whatever nonsensical egalitarian worldview Matt can come up with. See, Matt also just acts as though the things he believes are true. He believes, and therefore acts as though logic is real, math is real. Everything is real based on his presuppositional belief that they are real. You see, human flourishing, the cornerstone of Matt's ideology and that of secular humanism, is totally meaningless. Flourishing by whose metric? From my perspective, for instance, attempting to lie to people who claim men can be women isn't human flourishing. From Matt's perspective, it is. Why? Why should the collective of humanity lie and say men can get pregnant? Why should they say that men can have periods? Things which are categorically and obviously false. That preserving homosexuality in society is good for human flourishing, even though they are reproductive dead ends. And that Western society and egalitarianism is superior to those evil theist society, even though the Western nations can't even reproduce their own populations, but instead have to replace their population with foreigners from those theist nations that can reproduce. Let's start with a basic societal question recently asked of the West, who has now embraced a scientific and non-theistic approach to governing. Super basic question every kindergartner knows. If you don't believe me, go watch Kindergarten Cop. The question posed to the Western nation is, can a man be a woman? Right? To the question of if a man can be a woman, they say the answer is yes. And the way we will decree they can be a woman is by simply saying that woman now means male. Problem solved. Thank you, secular humanists. Thank you so much. Nope, not kidding. Why, you ask, would people be this over-the-top stupid? Well, it's simple. The good is the good, man. We have to do what's good for human society and human flourishing. And if you don't call these deranged lunatics something they obviously aren't, they might self-terminate. So in order to avoid that, we need to make everybody on planet Earth lie to them. This is human flourishing. Just redefine shit, pretend it's true. How laughably absurd this worldview is. Matt will often say, I remain unconvinced. Well, Matt, I'm also going to use your standard. I need for you to 100% convince me beyond a shadow of a doubt that males can have babies. What's the answer going to be? No, Andrew, you big stupid. Males can't have babies. Men can have babies. Because we just defined man to include females, dummy. Well, Matt, I remain unconvinced. I'd like Matt to convince me that if you are a male and you are having sex with another male, which would not be allowed in my version of a secular humanist worldview, how is it that you're not just basically having sex with a guy with a wig on? I really want to know the answer to that question. Not just me, but all rational people who aren't lunatics also want to know why "it's ma'am" isn't a complete and total crock of garbage. because I remain unconvinced that it isn't a total lie, and that these people don't just pervert the language to include their own perversions and then add human flourishing at the end. Matt has said he wouldn't make a law stopping 9-year-olds from having sex with each other. Not kidding. Now, I know this is going to sound a little bit totalitarian, but I would in fact create laws that made it a crime for a 9-year-old to have sex with their 9-year-old. I would hold the parents criminally liable for allowing this to happen in my evil authoritarian society, where I don't even let 9-year-olds have sex or the parents go straight to jail for negligence. Now, I think that's better for human flourishing. I think maybe parents would be far less likely to let their 9-year-olds do that if they went to jail. Stupid me. Next, I would in my authoritarian society decree that all simulated sex acts in public were criminal offenses and would make sure that all people went to prison for the crime of indecency, which doesn't assist with human flourishing, and I'd like to know why I'm wrong. Secular humanism can basically be whatever the hell you want it to be. It doesn't really need the principle of freedom or the starting axiom of freedom and peace in order to postulate whatever it wants. It's sloganeering. They're slogans. They don't mean anything. Okay, why do 9-year-olds need to be able to have sex in order to advance humanity? Why do we need to lie about a person's sex in order to advance humanity? Why are these things necessary for human flourishing? Why are decency laws bad? Why would Christian ethics stop flourishing when the theist mandate is to reproduce and the secular mandate is let's just all have sex and have fun, bro? That sounds way worse for human flourishing. In fact, I would say not reproducing is a worst possible thing for human flourishing, because if there's no humans, how do you flourish? So, I guess, in essence, step 1, I remain unconvinced. Step 2, I need to be convinced, so I am no longer unconvinced. And step 3, but God not real though doesn't matter here. I've already granted it to still demonstrate just how stupid this ideology actually is. With that, I'll yield my time, and I'm happy to get into it.
Hey, James, I just sent you a message.
All right. We are going to kick it into an open discussion, so 50 minutes, and let's kick it.
No, I don't think so. I'm not going to sit here and dignify the preparation that I went through and what people were here for.
You're so indignant.
Keep interrupting me.
I am.
Okay.
You're so indignant.
Would the moderator like to step in so that I can finish what I'm saying?
Please, Matt. Please. How dare someone have an opposing worldview?
I'm not going to sit here and dignify what was supposed to be a debate about Christianity versus secular humanism, which one's better for the world.
Yes.
With someone who clearly showed up with an agenda that has nothing to do with that. Someone who refers to trans people as deranged lunatics who will self-terminate if you dare to question them.
How am I wrong, Matt?
Someone who misrepresents a quote from a debate where I said I wouldn't make a law about 9-year-olds having sex being legal with respect to the 9-year-olds, not that I was in any way in favor of it and that I was actually opposed to it, which I addressed during that debate. But moreover, this is not remotely an honest interaction on the front of whether or not secular humanism is valuable. Because this, when he presented his position here, has nothing to do with secular humanism. From the get-go, it's all about me. Matt thinks, Matt thinks, Matt thinks. I'm giving what Matt thinks, what Matt thinks, what Matt thinks, what Matt thinks.
Matt's position.
I came in with the Secular Humanist Manifesto. I came in with positions that aren't just that aren't merely my positions.
Oh, well, as long as multiple people hold the position, it makes it valid.
This guy's not serious, and I'm leaving. James, if you want a refund, you
let
me know.
Good day, sir. And I'll cover your refund, Mr. Matt.
He just said he'd cover my refund.
I would cover his refund.
No. Nope. Nope. No, I'm not going to dignify a debate with someone who walked in to trash talk people and be smug and all of the things that he's being right now. He's already said he will cover my expenses. You don't have anything to worry about. This debate is over. Goodbye.